Hello friends, welcome back to Strategic Management, and now we are traversing towards our discussion on blue ocean strategy, wherein in the last segment we saw how Michael Porter has effectively expressed his views for red ocean and red ocean perspective and strategy, and how W. Chan Kim has tried to take our attention or draw our attention towards blue ocean strategy framework. Now in continuation, let's see what is blue ocean strategy all about. So what is blue ocean strategy? Red ocean definitely signifies competition and a war sort of situation wherein we are focused on defeating the competition, although that paper specifically talks about a competitive harmony also somehow. I have used this word from my side. The paper does not mention specifically about harmony, but then defense and some competitive equity sort of wherein competitors they exist or coexist. So that hint is there in that paper as well. But what is blue ocean? How we can think about blue ocean. Blue oceans, and here again we are taking the help of Kim and Moborn 2015 Blue Ocean Strategy, How to Create Uncontested Market Space and Make the Competition Irrelevant, Harvard Business Review Press. Blue oceans denote all the industries not in existence today. There it talked about existing together within an industrial frame. Not in existence today, the unknown market space untainted by competition. It is a slightly complicated when we just look at that and when we imagine that with the perspective of competition coexisting, but then it will get simplified as we go ahead. In blue oceans, demand is created rather than fought over. There is ample opportunity for growth that is both profitable and rapid. Demand is created. I have something which is useful for someone and someone else is not catering to that want. A blue ocean is an analogy to describe the wider, deeper potential to be found in unexplored market space. A blue ocean is vast, deep and powerful in terms of profitable growth. Sometimes when I think of blue ocean and blue ocean strategy and strategic perspective, I think that somehow can we start marketing pencils to everyone whosoever is using pens. We tried to do that once, but could we do that more effectively? Looking at this with a blue ocean kind of a perspective or framework, can we think in terms of taking different kinds of Indian food towards different kinds of customers all over the world who are actually non-customers to us? Can we think in terms of changing the usage of a particular kind of a product with a different kind of an orientation for people who wouldn't have imagined using that product anyways for that matter? Can we do that? How effectively can we do that? What is the orientation we should be having in these kind of things basically? What is to be reduced, what is to be raised, what is to be eliminated, what is to be added, that is how I am just jumbling up the terms, but then you would see that in my next segment W. Chan Kim expresses that. So further, blue ocean strategy is the simultaneous pursuit of differentiation. Now it is very important because in red ocean we are talking in terms of cost and differentiation trade off, cost or differentiation, but here simultaneous pursuit of differentiation and low cost to open up a new market space and create new demand. New market space and new demand. For example, if somehow innovatively it could be thought that X product could be used by someone wherein existing, you dissociate yourself from this existing industry somehow. For example, it's a wider kind of a thought process which comes to the mind, and then you start looking at things with a different kind of a perspective. For example, I do feel at one part of time that education should be so democratized that anyone can walk into your doors and study if they want to. If somehow you create an element of learning about the intent of the student, the most intending students, they should get the best of the opportunities, even if they do not have that kind of a basic cut off based kind of element associated with them. Although you would say that in my preceding segment I was talking about students being non customers, but then my intention is to talk about that first we should do that, and when we democratize this, then probably the employment landscape would change, because at the end of the day what employers require, they require very well read and intense students who have deeper intent to get associated with the workforce. So, probably it is about creating and capturing uncontested market space, thereby making the competition irrelevant. So, here comes uncontested market space and making the competition irrelevant. It is based on the view that market boundaries and industry structure are not a given and can be reconstructed by actions and the beliefs of industry players. This is how I want this world to be. That is how I wish to shape the market associated with the product which I conceive I have in mind, and that is how I should be developing my product or services at the end of the day. Probably Narayan Hridayalaya is one of those examples. I have been mentioning about these kind of organizations to you earlier. I would have mentioned such kind of examples many a times. Many a times some of my colleagues and students, they say that it is related to social marketing, but there I have a very specific opinion which is very individualistic to me, that any marketing which propels prosperity and opulence, or which brings or which works for bringing in prosperity and opulence, has to be social marketing. So, there is no difference in social and societal aspect of marketing and in marketing per se as per definition also. But if you will look at Narayan Hridayalaya and Arvind Eye Care and these kind of organizations with a strategic orientation, strategic perspective, they definitely have justified themselves as blue ocean experts. We would see that how they have done that. But before we go ahead, let us once again look at the difference between the two perspectives. In my preceding section we talked about red ocean and then what red ocean doesn't seems to have, but here it is the comparison which authors they try to project. So, in red ocean we compete in existing market space. According to blue ocean we create uncontested market space. Think of any product at this moment which is creating uncontested market space. For simply thinking about such kind of products, you may realize that one part of time many companies were not targeting at you as a customer or me as a customer for that matter, and then suddenly some organizations they started looking at us as customers, wherein we were not the customers for that kind of a particular industry. For example, travel and tourism industry, wherein people who could not pay that kind of a money were never the target customers according to their buying capacity. But then travel now, pay later kind of a thing, basically EMIs associated with travel and so on, and package tours, they took all the customers towards high rated hotel facilities and best of the flying experiences and best of the tourism experiences and so on, and people started going for those kind of opportunities. Uncontested market space. Beat the competition, as the red ocean says, and as I said, Pepsi, Coke, Huggies, Pampers, and you would find whole of the world divided into two large segments if you will look at that competitive landscape. And here the blue ocean says make the competition irrelevant. That means you bypass that competition. Can you think of Honda Activa as one of those products? Can you think of Honda as an organization marketing Honda Activa as with reference to blue ocean? Can we do that? Probably we can. Let us see how we would be able to justify that in my next session, but till then we will just compare those kind of things. So, then exploit existing demand, create and capture new demand, include new customers within the space, make the value cost trade off and break the value cost trade off. That is, value is given and somehow if we try to increase the value, cost would increase. That should not always be the perspective. Value along with lower cost can be there. How? We would see that. In the meanwhile, author also proposes that. The next is align the whole system of a firm's activities with its strategic choice of differentiation or low cost in red ocean, and align the whole system of a firm's activities in pursuit of differentiation and low cost with a blue ocean. Whenever I look around in terms of my personal choices associated with my purchasing, my life, what kind of products I have started going for, what kind of restaurants I visit now, what kind of entertainment platforms I access to, and so on, and what kind of gadgets we are using all around, and I look at the preceding habits which I had in terms of the buying capacity of my parents and then my early job years and so on, and then now I realize that many organizations, they have accessed me as a non-customer and they entered into blue ocean with that kind of a perspective, and somehow they created products which were innovative and created a difference in those products along with the low cost, which could fit into my perspective, and we got aligned. Just try and think of these kind of things and you would realize what we are talking about. Creating blue oceans, how to create that, authors further throw some light on that. While the term blue ocean might be new, its existence is not. They are part of business life, past and present. Just a few years ago, and this is about 2015 when authors were talking about this, so they were talking of probably 2010 or let's say 1995, few years ago. So just a few years ago, people were still skeptical of the ability of artificial intelligence to transform our lives so fast. The developments in recent years, however, have made AI in industry to concentrate upon, and at this moment when I am talking to you, AI is the buzzword. AI is replacing almost several kinds of functions which humans were doing in terms of analysis and so on, and especially collating data and deriving meaning out of data and so on. Robotics, that has taken a different kind of a space as far as the situation goes. But you see, we are talking of organizational perspective in terms of how to attract non-users. By using AI, how we are moving towards non-users, that is the main kind of a question that we are focusing upon as far as the situation goes. You may think of social media platforms. What was the first social media platform you accessed? Why? And then many users who were not using that kind of a particular social media platform, some other platform came in, and how these non-users, they got attracted towards this kind of a platform, and the users of the other platforms also partly moved towards that kind of a platform. Could you find that sort of flow from one platform to the other platform in case of let us say Facebook to Instagram or to Twitter or to LinkedIn? Were you transiting between those kind of platforms, or you were not using one platform and some other contacted you and you realized that yes, this is the right one for me? Can you think of those? I unfortunately have not been using social media platforms, but I have been monitoring those as an academician and talking to people about that with the reference of their experiences associated with those platforms, and I am fortunate enough that people have been guiding me immensely on their experiences, what they are having in terms of social media platforms and so on. And someone told me categorically that we get connected to the platforms to get shut off, and that was a phrase to me, and I built up a story around that basically. So there are several driving forces for creating blue oceans. This includes technological advancements. Accelerated technological advances have substantially improved industrial productivity, have allowed suppliers to produce an unprecedented array of products and services. The result is that in increasing numbers of industries, supply exceeds demand. Trend towards globalization. As trade barriers between nations and regions are dismantled and information on products and prices become instantly and globally available, niche markets and havens for monopoly continue to disappear. This is what was happening around, this is still happening around, although some of the changes are always observed this kind of a thing basically, wherein large organizations are dominating, and that domination get dismantled, but still there are several large organizations which have a huge market space around themselves and they are controlling the situation. So, we will not contest that as of now. This is a view which is being subscribed to understand that we can think in terms of our strategic progression with a blue ocean orientation as such. Commoditization, accelerated commoditization of products and services, increasing price wars and shrinking profit margins, as the author says. In overcrowded industries, differentiating brands becomes harder in both economic upturns and downturns especially. COVID-19 was a situation wherein we faced these kind of things in case of n number of organizations, wherein it was very tough for the organization to survive in terms of as far as being a substitute for the customer. The cornerstone of creating a blue ocean strategy is the concept of value innovation. Here the authors, they build up that case which we discussed in that chart in comparison of blue ocean, red ocean. It is known as value innovation because, and these are very important lines, instead of focusing on beating the competition, you focus on making the competition irrelevant. By creating a leap value for buyers and your company, thereby opening up new and uncontested market space. I have seen this happening in case of several kinds of restaurants, and this is very interesting. When somehow you go to large shopping malls, you would find very specialized restaurants these days somehow, and in many cases they have very specific customer orientation, and that customer usually either is fed up of whatever is happening around. Somehow they are not subscribing to, they are not of this opinion that they should be eating everywhere. They have tried almost everything. They wanted something new, and they become an uncontested market space for these kind of people, and with a latent kind of a need which they are nurturing in their minds. And many times, many people who are not actually very pro in going out and eating always, they are targeted by these kind of restaurants, wherein people start going out and eating in these kind of restaurants. Decathlon, if you visit, you would realize that they have many products which in general you wouldn't have bought, but when you go there you find a need associated with that kind of a product as such basically. For example, there is a torch there basically. Today, for example, the space where I stay, we do not require torches at all, because there is no electricity shut off, but then you feel like purchasing one, and you do not have a particular kind of a use for that. I am a non-user for them completely, for that kind of a torch brand basically, but that is presented that way, that is marketed that way somehow. You see, I am trying to associate such examples which may not be directly so much related to, for example, colored pens. You are not using so many colored pens in your daily lives, but somehow those are presented that way, and use that somehow. For example, sports gear, for example, sports equipment, for example, rackets and bats. You happen to purchase those because somehow they have been focused upon you as non-users, and you may use them in due course of time. And that is how exercise equipment was also marketed in due course by several kinds of companies, attracting non-users who are neither going for yoga nor they are going to gyms, and they were looking for something, or they did not have that in mind that they can do it by themselves at their own homes, in their own comfort and so on, and the equipment was somehow reconstituted according to the individual needs rather than a gymnasium need and so on, gymnasium based need and so on and so on. So, those kind of things were there. Individual photography, every person in this world is now a photographer. It may be an exaggerated statement, please do not take it otherwise, but this is usually the expression we get from everyone. Everyone is clicking photographs. Again, I may be a very wrong kind of an exception, not associated with this social norm, basically more or less not very fond of clicking photographs now and then, but I have realized that people do that. People do that every moment and post something on whatever updates or something basically. And that is why all the mobile companies, they have started looking for multiple cameras and those kind of things. In all, people have started purchasing mobile phones for being a camera at the end of the day. Probably that was a perspective which mobile phone companies carried about, that finally people love to click photographs, especially their own photographs, and somehow it worked. So, innovation without value tends to be technology driven, market pioneering or futuristic, often shooting beyond what buyers are ready to accept and pay for. That is how W. Chan Kim describes that. Further, he adds that value innovation is created in the region where companies' actions favorably affect both its cost structure and its value proposition to the buyers. Cost savings are made by eliminating and reducing the factors an industry competes on. Buyer value is lifted by raising and creating elements the industry has never offered. That is where eliminating and reducing on one side, raising and creating on the other side. So, what have you eliminated and what have you reduced, and what are you raising and what have you created as far as the value proposition goes. Over time, costs are reduced further as scale economies kick in due to high sales volume that superior value generates. And this is where value innovation framework comes in, the simultaneous pursuit of differentiation and low cost, and you would realize it is here. Can you think of such kind of products around you? Yes, there are utensils around you, there are shoes around you, there are jackets around you, the warmers around you, the blankets around you, the bed covers around you, everything, and they have very good specific names associated to those. There are chairs around you, there are molded chairs, or there is molded furniture around you. There are several things which you would realize wherein cost and buyer value has merged at somewhere value innovation. So, cost is reduced and buyer value has increased in due course of time. We talked about travel and tourism industry, we talked about several other kinds of industries, and then look at the products around. So, you would realize that yes, we have been traveling towards this kind of thing, but still why competitive landscape? Why still companies, they could not completely declare that they are into blue ocean rather than red ocean? Is it just because of that they try to go towards blue ocean and then they are pulled towards red ocean by their competitors, or the competitors whom they try to leave, or or other people also try to follow into the same customer space or market space where they went? Yes, it happens. When someone goes to blue ocean, people do follow, organizations do follow, and that blue ocean tends to become red ocean after a particular kind of stage. It depends upon how well you keep up your pace of remaining in blue ocean and making the competition irrelevant. That is an important thing for us to remember, because blue ocean can turn into red anytime. That is what we should remember at all the times. And how we would be able to pursue that? Again, by looking into what is to be eliminated, what is to be reduced, what is to be raised, and what is to be created. This is a continuous exercise in terms of as far as creating and remaining in blue ocean, especially by the organizations. Now, there are some specific examples which one can think of. Marvel Studios, very specific movies were produced by them, and you see, we started loving Captain America and those kind of movies wherein there was whole lot of, they were probably targeting a younger age viewers, kids and students and so on, but then everyone started loving those kind of movies, and then they started creating experiences around those movies, and then they started creating sequels. And you see, in India also, Yash Raj Films, they have been creating such kind of, they have been producing such kind of movies wherein the movies for initial phases, they somehow focus upon some specific target, but then they realize that it is largely for many non-movie viewers or customers, and then that keeps on expanding, and somehow it goes towards those kind of things basically. So, there are several kinds of models which are like Marvel, and they are not contesting with each other, they have different market spaces for themselves. So, different blue oceans with different kinds of market spaces, they do coexist in similar industry categories. That also happens. Models can be replicated. Arvind Eye Care model was replicated by Dr. Consorta in Brazil, and we happened to talk to them when we visited those clinics in Sao Paulo, and we realize that they are actually learning from that model and replicating that model there, and these are two different blue oceans as far as this complete space goes. So, that also happens. Nintendo, we all know. Cirque du Soleil has been talked about as far as uh, W. Chan Kim goes, with a lot of value in terms of how a circus actually became a reason for entertainment for several kinds of people who were neither going too much into as far as movies go, nor for several kinds of matches, and they wanted to go to circus, but they never used to go to circus because of several kinds of things which they did not like about circus in terms of extra use of risky games there, basically several kinds of trapeze acts which used to put artists' life on risk basically. Then animals were involved, and we are currently aware of this fact that we should leave animals alone and to let them live their lives happily wherever they wish to. So, those kind of things have always been there, and then Cirque du Soleil basically changed the complete profile, and we might talk about that later on as well, when I would describe how Blue Ocean framework actually traverses and progresses throughout, and how it is implemented and executed. But that was the perspective. When they changed the complete profile, lot many people started going to circus with a different kind of an orientation. How did they do that? We may talk about that, otherwise you may please surf about that. Organization has closed down their business, I told you earlier as well. Stitch fix, it happens with me all the time more or less, that I visit a shop and I find a good shirt, I like it suits me well, it fits well, and I am happy. Next time I go there, I do not find the similar kind of a shirt. They say that it was for a while that such kind of a shirt was brought in. Now, sir, you have only the straight fit. The problem is that if you like slightly loose fit, you might not like straight fit, but somehow people have started liking straight fit. So, what to do? Then you go back to the traditional means, get a cloth, get it stitched. Tailor might not effectively stitch that so well, and then you keep on justifying that finally I got my shirt. But the point is, Stitch Fix, these kind of organizations, they have tried to create that kind of a thing basically, that you would find similar kind of a product which you are searching for, and we would stitch fix that product precisely for you. We are for everyone who would, especially who would not be able to find their product through traditional outlets or outlets all over. Am I making sense? If yes, try to start looking at things with the perspective of Blue Ocean. I would be coming back to you with my second session on Blue Ocean, and would specifically be, I should not say enlightening you, talking about how Blue Ocean works. I would be catching up back with you next time very soon. Till then, goodbye.